All of us as humans have fundamental needs: the need for food, water, and air. And one of the themes that we've explored here together on Aloud is that we also have some specific social needs. We need to belong. We need to work in teams to survive. And we need to feel recognized, respected, and understood. We actually need to live in community and relationships in order to thrive. We're really losing this art of relating to each other authentically. And most of us were divorced from our core communities maybe multiple times in our life, and we keep trying to rebuild. So if you really ask yourself, do I know how to instantly connect with others around me in a way that helps both of us feel loved, honored, and complete? What is your answer? Whatever it is, on today's episode, you're going to get some tools to really enrich your life and your relationships from one of my favorite people on the planet, Simon Darcy. So whether you are supported by a rich community that nurtures the best parts of you and helps you to grow and succeed, or if you are feeling isolated, sometimes lonely, like you're wandering through a relational desert, today's episode is going to rock your world. You are allowed to need others. You are allowed to show up just as you are and to discover more about your own brilliance through your relationships. You can be connected as who you really are and be connected to others. Now let's start the show. Aloud.
When you were born, you were whole, perfect. Then somewhere along the way, you learned that parts of you were not allowed here, and you began to chip away at yourself. What are the pieces of you that you've put into the basement? The parts of you that we cannot see anymore or that you cannot even remember? What are the ways that you, without even knowing it, are eroding your own aliveness, your creativity, and your well-being? And how can you reclaim the wholeness that is your birthright? I'm Dr. Caneel, Joyce, and I'm here to join you in exploring these questions and many more you didn't even know you were allowed to ask. You are allowed to grow. You're allowed to dream. You are allowed to be exactly who you are and to become the next version of who you want to be. Start your journey of exploration with me right now on Aloud. Aloud. You are allowed to be whole.
Welcome back, my fearless friends. Thank you for coming back to continue learning and growing. I'm so excited to be here today with Simon Darcy, who's an amazing coach and really a master of his craft. Today, we're going to be discussing some very practical tools and applications for how to build healthy, thriving relationships and why that is just so very important. We'll also be talking about community building, and some very interesting, unusual things that Simon has done with community over the years. And I think you'll find it very inspiring, as I have. I'm also really excited that we're talking about these topics because many of you have already signed up to join me in the live interactive webinar that we've got going on in just about a week here. Early in March, we've got a live interactive webinar. It's free. It's essentially a coaching workshop where we are going to together support each other in recharging our New Year's resolutions or our annual goals or setting our annual vision, whatever way you like to think about it, and really honing in on one goal and better understanding how we can achieve that goal, and specifically how we can create a team of champions around us to make achieving that goal so much easier and more enjoyable and more fun. So if you want to get pumped up with energy or find more clarity, this is going to be a really great opportunity to do that. And you will be joined by others in this community, all of whom are on the same path as you are to really become the best and most conscious leader that they can be. So please come to Caneel.com to sign up. You only have a few days left to do that. And whether or not you know for sure you are going to be available on the day of the actual live webinar, if you sign up there, you will get to be invited when we have a replay available. And I'm throwing in 2 freebies, which are awesome. One of them is a resolution recharge worksheet and our brand new goal tracker, which I'm really excited about. So please come to Caneel.com to sign up for the webinar and get the freebies. And I can't wait to see you there. So this missing link for many of us has to do with our relationships, our community, that team of champions. Listen into this conversation with Simon and I know you will leave more equipped to build that for yourself. Let's get started. As you know, growth is a lifelong commitment to continuing to be and become our best self. And I'm so thankful that you're here with us today. We have in the studio one of my very favorite people of all time, a true master of his craft, a founder, an author, an incredible teacher and trainer, and a man with many a trick up his sleeve. So I'm very excited for you to get to meet my beloved Simon Darcy. Simon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm really excited today to talk with you about some things that are really special to me because you've taught me a lot about these topics over the years that we've worked together. Simon and I both met through a community and a coaching firm that we are connected to called Evolution. So we've had a chance to spend a lot of time together, and we've collaborated on things. We collaborated at LinkedIn, we collaborated at 8i and many
Google.
great companies, Google, yes. And so through doing that, I've had the opportunity to be in community with you. And that's one of the things I know we're going to be chatting about today. And I've also had the chance to experience you as the facilitator and creator of these containers for a type of conversation that I had never been able to experience before in my entire life. And for the listeners here, we're really excited for you to become a part of that conversation with us here today. So I'm leaving this a little bit mysterious on purpose, and I'm really excited for Simon to share his gift and his knowledge with all of us. So Simon, as a little bit of background, I'm wondering if there's a story from work we've done together or something we've witnessed together that stands out as a funny story.
The one that's I'm remembering is that, I don't know, 4 years ago, for some time, we were leading the senior leadership of a startup manager offsite.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know, I was leading something, and like right before the morning break, one of the co-founders kind of comes in and a little bit hungover.
And he came in quite late, I believe.
Yeah, late. No, it was like
Maybe
an hour,
hour and a
30
half.
minutes into our day. And we had already kind of like the train had left the station, and we were, we're in a good groove. And this person comes in really hot, bothered by the things that happened the night before. And I don't know everything that's going on in terms of the context because you were holding the background. And I remember saying, hey, so you just arrived. And this person just starts to like kind of unload. Like, I'm pissed about this, I don't like this, and is kind of complaining about stuff that probably 20 out of the 25 people in the room either didn't know or had really wasn't relevant to them. And
or even appropriate.
I think I looked out of the corner of my eye, and the CEO's like, and the COO is like, oh my God. And there's this moment of like, well, how do you respond to something like that?
Right. As the trainer, you're standing at the front of the room and you were midstream talking about communications or management style. And then suddenly the storm comes in, bomb drops, like big explosion. Everyone had really noted his absence to begin with. So there was a lot of tension in the air. And then it's your job now suddenly to manage this situation. So I was just watching you thinking, I'm so glad it's you up there and not me.
How funny, because I was thinking the opposite. I was like, Caneel going to handle this? Was Caneel going to jump in? And then it was like, there was this good moment when I remember going, okay, how do we slow down our conversation enough so that they can include all the things that are happening for us as humans? Because the speed of most conversations are so fast and so content focused that like there's almost no room for us to fully be there. But so in that moment, he brought up all these different things.
Yeah.
And what I remember doing was just saying, okay, can I just pause you for a second? And then I reflected what I heard him saying a little bit.
What do you mean by reflected?
Like I just kind of said, oh, so it seems like you've got some heat around a few things, like boom, headline. And it seems like you're wanting some resolution or some kind of conversation to happen. And he's like nodding. And it also seems like this is a really hard place to be, empathy. And I'm also aware that there's a whole manager training going on that we're right in the middle of. And I imagine that some of what you said is new information that people are now even just processing, and that there's like an impact to what you just said. And I'm aware that we need to take a break soon. So I'm just I don't know what to do, but I'm wondering what the right move is right here.
Yes. It was so simple. You were just naming the truth
Right.
and acknowledging all of the elements of the awkwardness of that moment
Yeah.
for every single person in that room. And I watched as his body language relaxed, and everyone in the room was just like, whew, thank goodness someone named it, someone's managing it, no one's feeling like excluded, and I'm still going to get my break in 8 minutes.
Right.
I was blown away by just how cool and calm you were. And I think after that training, that's when I first bowed to you and called you master, is it not?
You did. You kind of came up to me right after you're like, so, my God, oh my God. That was the first time anybody's ever done that. So that was a milestone for me.
Yeah, I learned a lot from you in that moment of how simple it can be to just slow something down.
Yeah.
So tell me about that skill set.
So I do culture building, team building. I'm helping leadership teams and companies kind of upgrade the quality of their conversations. And I think that's one of the main points I want to make today is like whether you're building connection or building community or building team or company culture, the best way to, I think, tell the quality of all of those things is through the quality of the conversation happening in the moment. So conversation quality is a proxy for the quality of connection, community, and culture. And there's low quality conversations and there's much higher quality conversations.
Absolutely. As a society, how do you think we're doing in general around the quality of our conversations and the way that we build relationship through
We're doing
conversation?
horribly, like horrible. Like the culture of most conversations, particularly in business, is, I mean, there's like this bunch of social habits that are getting in the way. So speed, too fast. We're just like fast, 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 fast. Too fast for humans to actually include all of themselves in. We're prioritizing content and solving things over anything else. We're mostly either talking about the past or the future, hardly ever really in the present moment. And there's a ton of unowned assumptions and projection that are slipping into what we're saying that are gunking up the quality of the conversation. And then lastly, we're talking for too long. Someone will talk for 4 minutes and they'll repeat themselves 3 times and then people are tuning out. And so we're not
Oh,
actually
yeah.
having a conversation. We're having like co-monologues.
Yes. And often while one is supposed to be listening, what they're really doing is analyzing and figuring out, what do I want to say next, which is so different from listening.
Yeah.
So community building, culture building, team building, building relationships, this is your wheelhouse, right? All of these things
Yes.
combined. And you really dedicated your life to this. I mean, you've even got a book coming out in a few months, I believe. So why? Why is this so important to you personally?
I had like really healthy community and relationships modeled for me by my father and his group of extended friends. They used to call themselves the extended family. And there's about 30 adults, and they would like participated in workshops and assisted together at different things. This is in the 80s, and like LifeSpring happened, and it's like a transformational kind of context. And so I kind of had a weird upbringing, unorthodox, cool dad. And
Wow.
I got to see like, oh wow, adults who are listening and caring and supporting each other and being really authentic. And there's no like other secret agenda, just people being in community together. So with that as a reference experience, plus my kind of wiring, I kind of set me on a path of caring about that.
Wow.
We're already always connected in some way.
Yes.
We ignore it most of the time. I call it like the illusion of separateness, right? The trance of separateness. And so that kind of belief in like, oh, wow, and more than belief, it's kind of an experience. I meet new people and it's like, oh, I don't know your name yet, but we're connected. We're connected because we're actually standing in the same place and noticing each other, right? We're connected, or we're connected by a purpose, or we're connected by a place, or we're connected by a circumstance. And if more teams and people and leaders and families and politicians would like start acting like we're connected, we might be doing less damage, and things could get a lot easier. So for me, that's like, can we stop pretending that we're not already always connected and
Mm.
start making decisions and putting structures in place and treating each other in ways that honor that?
Have you seen this actually happening inside of organizations?
Well, I think it's starting to happen more and more. What I see more than anything is people hungry for it,
Yeah.
like water in a desert, longing for it. And then when I just do a simple thing like, let's just do a check-in with a couple sentence stems. Like I just did this on Tuesday. I did a check-in with 23 people, couple sentence stems, and then we took a break. And one of the gentlemen came up to me, he's from New York, and he goes, "Oh my God, this is probably the best offsite I've ever been to. This is so like people are being so real and authentic. And I like, thank you." And I'm like, wow, all I did was, invite and demonstrate being a little bit vulnerable and real, and then invited them to do the same. And it
Mhm.
changed the culture of the moment, right? It changed the way people felt with each other and in their bodies. And then he's like giving me credit for something like, no, that's just because we're living in a desert, an authenticity desert. So,
Authenticity desert.
yeah, and we don't even know it.
I love that. So, Simon, a lot of our listeners are leaders and they are managers of people. And there are others who maybe they're freelancers or they're leaders in their community and in their families. But either way, this is really a show about leadership and bringing your whole self into it. In that context of leadership, what might they notice in their teams or their organizations if there's not enough authentic relating being role modeled in the culture?
Multitasking, not paying attention to the person who's talking. Pretty much most of your standard meetings in corporate America are these pretty horrible ordeals. So when connection is not present, I want to tune into something that is live. Like we're like aliveness seeking beings. And so if I'm not finding aliveness in the conversation that's happening right now, I'm going to go seek it somewhere else, including, dopamine hits from my texts and emails and Slack messages, or getting something knocked off my list while this person is talking about something I don't care about.
Yeah. I can imagine a lot of those managers who are maybe guilty of that themselves and multitasking, and I've definitely seen that in tons of meetings. They're feeling an intense pressure of time. And what do you say when a manager says, "I don't have time to slow down and do this relating thing"?
I hear that a lot, right? Like, no, we don't have time not to multitask in meetings. And I worked with a group at Genentech. And Genentech does a lot of things really right around culture. They've been investing in leadership and culture for decades and from their inception. And this team I worked with, I said, nobody was multitasking this entire meeting. And I made a comment. And they go, "Oh, yeah, in our culture, if you're multitasking in a meeting, you're perceived as someone who can't handle the workload they have and be present with other people. It's not a good thing." I was like, oh, wow, way to flip the script.
Yes. And Genentech, last I checked, is doing pretty well.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of things right. I think another symptom, just to add to that list, is there's a lot of things that don't get said, and the more things that were not said, and there's more elephants in the room, the less connected I feel with myself. So when a leader doesn't make room for humans to be humans, or doesn't make room for what's really going on to be spoken, even just named, it doesn't have to be processed to be named, the liveness of the conversation, the liveness of the group, and the aliveness experienced by each individual is going to go down.
Mhm.
And so even like basic things like a check-in where you're just doing like the mood meter, like what's your one word for your mood right now, and a word about like how you're doing. We get more connected and our nervous system relax a little.
Yeah.
So get connected first, then get to work.
Yes. What comes up for me is I'm thinking about, some of the clients I've coached and teaching them about this mood meter. And, when a conversation is getting stuck and you feel the intensity rising and people aren't finding that agreement that they're looking for, to ask, what's everybody feeling? And I teach them how to do that. It quickly becomes a favorite tool because
Yeah.
merely having that little bit of information allows the conversation to now be shaped by all of the participants in the conversation in a way that is going to be received by the
Mhm.
others in the conversation, so they can make decisions much more quickly and efficiently and with less strife. And it is a huge accelerant. It doesn't slow you down. It's the opposite.
Yeah, I think there's this, again, mostly unconscious, automatic assumption that gets acted out that we're all present and paying attention,
What a joke.
right? To one thing. And it's not true most of the time. And to really have one conversation in a group where we're all present to the same thing at the same time can be a transformative thing, but it's not happening most of the time.
Do you have any specific ways that a manager might want to bring these skills into the workplace? Where would those fit in?
The sentence stems, like check-ins. I do check-ins, pulse checks, and checkouts. I'll take, depending on the number of people and the simplicity of the stem, could take anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes total, right? Or
Mm.
10 minutes if it's a longer stem. Super easy. Not a big investment of time, gets people connected to themselves, to the moment, and to each other. A pulse check is a particular one that I want to talk about. I was facilitating a group and we were finalizing their culture code. Like, what's our 10-person company? They're now 60. They're going to be 200 by the end of the year. And they were doing their work in the beginning to figure out who they wanted to be and what their values were and what the state. And we were just wordsmithing and this slide up there and we'd been working for 2 hours on it. And people were starting to kind of like, when is this going to end? And I invited them to do a sentence stem check anytime I authorized them. And one of the guys said, okay, pulse check. When I look at what's on the screen, I feel, and
Whoa.
every person went around and filled in the blank on that. And it was mostly just one word. And 80% of what people said was super positive.
Mm.
And you just could feel the room go, wait a minute, we're continuing to work really hard towards something and we're actually almost there. It's just like this, whoa, I'm glad we checked.
Ah. Because we so often assume we have to convince the people so hard of things, and we waste so many slides on that.
Yeah. And then the check for impact is also super useful. Like you're a leader, you just announced something, you just brought new information in, you just brought news that maybe people are having a hard time processing or it's to change. And to just roll on like nothing happened is you're going
Mhm.
to lose people. So can you say what you need to say and then go, okay, I'd love to hear a little bit of how this is impacting you. And you could do a couple rounds of this. One could just be, can you just tell me some things you heard in what I said? Like what stood out? And this is just pure reflection, a word or a phrase of what you heard and without any commentary. So people do that. And that kind of helps metabolize it in the group. And then, okay, good. Now, if you have a big group, you can have people pair up and share for like a minute each on what's coming up for them. And they each get to share. It's private, they can say whatever they want. And then you can come back into the team and go, okay, what's some of the impact of hearing this? And see if you can keep it to a couple sentences each so we can hear from as many people as possible. And then you get to hear all these headlines. And it
Mm.
gives you a lot of information about where people actually are at with what just got said.
I love this tool. I've also heard a lot of pushback sometimes when I've advised my CEOs, my founders to gather feedback like that. And often the pushback is, one is, I don't want it to just be a venting session.
Yeah.
And two is, then they're going to expect me to do something about it. And they're all going to want different things, or we're strapped for time and money. So
Right.
what would you say to that
I love
poor
it.
CEO?
Yeah. I would say, well, so what's the other choice? To pretend?
And they're like, yes.
Yeah, we'll just pretend. Like the other choice is let's pretend, and then everybody's going to do their pocket veto thing, right? Where we're going to pretend we're aligned, and then we go away, and people aren't really taking action proactively toward the thing because they're not emotionally bought in. They have concerns, and they haven't been spoken. So there's good reasons not to do that in a group sometimes, depending on the group and the scope and the timing. But not to hear the concerns at all. It's typically a bad idea. At minimum, you want to hear them and you want to let people know how their concern has already been considered and voiced by
Mm.
maybe someone else that they don't know, and why we still chose to do the thing we wanted to do. And at maximum, they may have something that makes it better or helps you implement it in a better way.
Is it then incumbent upon the leader to, if there's a perceived problem or a negative reaction, is it incumbent on them to solve that problem?
Right. So that's another trap, right? Not in the moment. Like in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, like let's hear what's there and let's give people a structure so it's kind of brief and efficient. And so it doesn't like lead to venting and complaining session. Let's capture it. And
Mm-hmm.
then I can go away as a leader and I can digest it and I can bring some counsel together and figure out what the best way to respond is. And I can come back and say, okay, here's what I heard. I heard this, this, and
Mm-hmm.
this. And here's what I've done with that. And here's how I think we've already factored in this. And here's some things I'm actually now considering based on what I heard. And here's some things that probably aren't going to change, even though it would probably be a good idea if it did. And here's why.
Good advice. Good advice for parents too.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you mentioned sentence stems, and this is another thing you're so masterful in. Can we do a few right now? Would that work?
Sure. Yeah.
So the audience who doesn't know about sentence stems yet can play a part. So listener, dear listener, this is a moment where I really want you to picture yourself sitting in a room with Simon and I, and perhaps some others in your community or that you've been connected to. And just imagine that we're all doing this synchronously. We're all here in real time, connecting in this way. And answer for yourself this question as well. I'll answer it too to demonstrate. You have a good sentence stem for us, Simon?
How about just like right now, I'm noticing?
Oh, good one. Right now, I'm noticing your smile. I'm noticing that your lips are closed as you're smiling, and there's sort of a gentleness to your face. I'm noticing heat actually rising up from, around the machines that I'm working with here in my studio, and it feels like there's heat coming off the mic, and maybe there's some from the computer, and like I'm just very aware of the little bit of motion in the air. Yeah. And listener, right now, what are you noticing? And just really answer this question for yourself. It could be anything about something you're noticing internally. It could be a thought that you're noticing is coming up for you. It could be something in your environment you're noticing.
Could be a
And
feeling.
it could be a feeling, a sensation, a feeling. And Simon,
Can I go?
yeah.
Right now, I'm noticing like it's just this not a tension, but an experience in my jaw from smiling so much, or like almost like not forcing it, but I'm wanting like something in me is very happy, so I'm noticing how it feels in my face, and I'm also noticing a thought that goes something like, "Oh, I wonder how this is going. Like, I wonder how people are hearing this," and and I'm
Yeah.
and I'm feeling energized. And the thing I'm feeling energized by is not knowing what you're going to say next or what I'm going to say next, which feels very exciting.
I feel the excitement about that too. I really, it's a thrill to be doing something like this where we don't know what's going to unfold next. And I feel so at ease and excited at the same time doing that with you. And I believe a large part of that is because of your level of presence. Yeah. So let's break that down. What did we just do? What tool was that?
Okay, so the framework is, let's suppose there's four kinds of conversations we can have in any moment. And one would, let's call informational conversations. And that's probably 90% of the conversations that are happening on the planet. It's we're talking about this other thing out there and referencing this thing, and we have opinions about the thing, and we want things for the thing. We're talking about the weather or sports. We can objectify anything and then talk about it for a long time, way beyond people's interest, apparently. And then, so that's informational. And in most of business is talking about the thing. And then the second is task related conversations. Like, I need to do this, do that, do this, do this, kind of transactional. And then the third is personal conversations where I'm talking about me or you're talking about you. And I could be talking about me in the future or me in the past, but it's personal. And then the fourth, which is what we were just doing, is called a relational conversation. And the difference between a relational conversation and the others is that a relational conversation is one that is about what's happening right now, only right now, in me, within you, or between us. So
Mm-hmm.
I have my experience. You're having your experience over there. We're in a conversation. And when we put our attention on what's happening in me, in you, between us, the conversation can get really rich really quickly.
Yes. So informational, task, personal, and relational.
Yeah.
And I can immediately think of some conversations I've been a part of, or I've been the deliverer of that monologue of that conversation, that were really solely focused on one of these, and how draining it can be, and how alive it feels to be in a relational conversation.
Yeah, and even like more basic, like I want to slow this down because for me to be aware of myself and what's happening and to be aware of you
Hmm.
and to, stay connected with me and then to stay connected with you at the same time, which is really
Yeah.
what a conversation should be or could be, is we're actually both connected with ourselves and each other, is I think way more of a challenging thing than
Hmm.
most of us give it credit for. Like how often do we get in conversations where I'm so tuned into the other person
Hmm.
that I have like left my own yeses and nos and opinions and feelings and intuitions behind.
So that's like codependence, right? So
Right.
I'm only attuning to your needs.
Yeah, independence, codependence,
Hmm.
and so this capacity to be connected with me, connected with you at the same time in a moment
Hmm.
is a muscle that I think we all could develop more of.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what the authentic relating skills and the games and the processes are really good at. And I use them liberally inside of most like team building, culture building type situations or
Hmm.
family building or,
And while the awareness is a muscle, the tools and the games are so simple.
they're very
So
simple.
many of them. For the listeners, we'll actually put some links in the show notes so that you can go and check out some of the games that Simon is referencing. There's some really fantastic work being done on this, and it's definitely a growing field and a really cool toolkit. No matter what your job is, or what your relationships are like, or what your community is like, you can use them and no one will even know you're using them, but they are super, super powerful.
Yeah.
Probably great for dating, I would imagine.
Very good. Very, in fact, I have my brother and his girlfriend, they're hosting a series of Valentine's Day meetups for singles, and they're using authentic relating like sentence stems just to have a lot of people get to meet a lot of other people.
Oh, that is so hot.
Yeah.
That is so hot. I love that. Gosh, I would have gone to that for sure
Yeah. They're
if
doing one for
back
singles
then.
and then one for couples that just want to like kind of get a little more real and
Hey, there you
like,
go.
instead of chocolates, how about authenticity?
Yes. Chocolate our era needs. Yes.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about community? I want to hear about your community stuff.
Yeah, we can talk about community. What do you want to know?
So, first, tell us about your annual camping trip.
Yeah. Well, first, it's not mine. It's a bunch of ours. But about 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, there were a group of moms that were in a mommy baby group, and a lot of the partners of those moms were in another group. And we decided we cared about community. And so we started gathering for like a potluck on a Sunday once a month. We'd have a meal, and we just did like a pass the talking stick, like just everybody say, share how you're doing in their life for 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it was. And it was a very simple structure, and whoever was leading that day could like offer a prompt or a theme or a something, and we did it every month. And our kids were young, so the kids would go play and we would do the thing, and we'd
Hmm.
rotate who took care of the kids. And we did this every month, and we did that for 20 years. But after about 3 years of this, we were like, this is so great. Like we feel close to each other. And like literally 3 hours a month created a level of closeness that none of us had ever experienced in an ongoing, consistent way with a group that had no agenda or teacher or something they were trying to sell, or it was just about being connected and in each other's lives. So 3 hours a
Hmm.
month. We said 3 hours a month isn't enough. So we're like, can we
Hmm.
do something else? And we went, and a couple of us were part of another kind of family camping trip. And they had really created a lot of cool community oriented processes. And so we said, let's do our own like version of that. And we went up to the Redwoods, and for 7 days and 7 nights, we hired a caterer. Well, in the beginning, we didn't do that. We just like figured it out. We were on the Big Sur River, and we're just at the group campsites. And it became this kind of retreat. It's like Burning Man's the wrong thing, but the kind of like self-expression and
Hmm.
welcoming of just like us being us was such a strong thing. And then it was very like family friendly, and it was multiple generations, and it was very leaderful, and people could just offer whatever they wanted to offer and receive whatever they wanted to receive. And then we would invite new people. And what we quickly found out is that new people would come and they would freak out because there was like, wow, you guys are all so connected. And that like that in-group, out-group thing would get stimulated.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, let's come up with maybe a more friendly on-ramp for people that are coming in. New people were really necessary because it really created vibrancy and just a better experience for everybody.
Hmm.
And so we came up with some principles like include yourself, include others,
Hmm.
like self-expression, but also consideration.
Yes.
Honor yourself, but also honor others. Bring your dignity, but also bring your humility. And this kind of polarity of like connect with self, connect with other, all kind of feels like part of the same whole. And
Yeah.
we started just being a little more explicit about that. And the camp, it's not just a camping trip. It's like half workshop, half camping trip.
A little bit of festival,
Yeah.
maybe.
And then a little bit of like a lot of emergent things that happen in the middle. One year, like this group says, they decided they created a magical mystery tour. They surprised everybody, and someone stayed back, took care of the kids at camp, a couple people, and they like led us on this like hike, and they had us blindfolded. And then we come to the other side, and there's like a tiki lounge in the middle of the forest, and drums and music and a bar. And we're like, what? And we have a dance
What?
party in the middle of the thing. And, when you let people like be leaderful and do self-expressed and people feel connected, a lot of creativity can come out.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing. And I'm so glad that you shared the humble beginnings of this incredible thing that when you first described it to me, I thought I'll never have that. I'll never have it. It seems so impossible. I can't build it. No one will want it. But the on-ramp that you had together
Yeah.
of a simple dinner party
Yeah.
and sharing with a very little teeny tiny bit of structure, and I'm guessing no crosstalk.
Definitely.
So crosstalk is someone shares their own experience, another person says something about that share, and often does so with the intent to kind of change something.
Yeah.
We've all had the experience of you're sharing something in your life that's maybe a challenge, and then someone kind of insensitively says, oh, it's all going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And sometimes you're like, that's just not where I'm at right now. Right now, what I want to be seen is that this is hard for me. That's what I want to be seen.
Yeah.
Or it could be any scenario. So the simplicity of this structure you had is really like I'm feeling a sense of relief.
Mm.
I can do it. I can build it.
Yeah, and I think I just want to say something about, and I want to advocate for intentional conversations for a second, because
Mm-hmm.
on the one hand, I could criticize, or I even have been criticized, even by my own children in particular. Like I remember my daughters going, "Can we just hang out? Like, can we just have a conversation?" And it's true. Like, there's a social way of just being together, where there's like zero control exerted over how things go, and it'll go however it goes. And sometimes it goes great, and sometimes it goes not so great, whatever. But there's something about being intentional that allows for a different kind of an experience. And then you can kind of experiment with, like, what kind of experience do we want? Oh, well, what do we need to do differently in order to have that experience? So like the simple thing of like, everybody gets 3 minutes, no crosstalk, and listen with your heart can produce a lot of magic that wouldn't otherwise occur. Or in the sentence stem games, like, yeah, here, fill in the sentence, but don't go further than a sentence. And then and keep filling in the same sentence for a minute. I did this at Google that you actually hooked me up. And I did this for beginning of a conference. There's 70 people in there, and I had everybody do a sentence stem of like, if you really knew me, you would know. And they repeat. First, they did back and forth, like, if you really knew me, if you really knew me, that's it. And then I said, okay, let's do round two, and get with a new partner. If you really knew me, fill in the blank, and then you just keep repeating, if you really knew me, filling in the blank for 90 seconds.
Whoa.
And like people finished that, and the room felt qualitatively different. And when people were sharing about their experience, they go, wow, that was a lot harder, but a lot deeper than I imagined. And like that took 3 minutes between two people and a minute to set it up. That took 4 minutes, and 70 people got more connected with themselves than another human.
Oh, yeah.
That's insanely efficient.
Insanely efficient. And what's neat is at the beginning of some of these exercises, one might not know that they even want the outcomes of this, right?
Yeah. Well,
Got it.
I think we've been like entranced into just accepting a really mediocre level of connection.
Yeah.
Like people
Yeah.
are hungry for it. Like we're in a desert, we're super wanting water, but we think we're in a hotel or something, or we think we're somewhere else. Like we don't even
Hmm.
know that we're in a desert because we've just gotten used to it.
Yeah.
And
I'm not allowed to want more. And we are allowed. But the only way that we can get the more is if we allow ourselves to show up,
yeah,
right?
one of the principles in authentic relating, there's like this major guideline. It's honor self, honor other. And like honoring self is I let myself be in touch with what I desire in this moment. Like, do I want this? Do I not want this? And so honoring myself is doing what I want to do and not doing what I don't want to do. And as I follow that, like my aliveness just gets to stay intact. And then I'm honoring other by like paying attention, like you're saying you want something, you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something. So I need to like honor the no's. Can I meet the yeses while honoring myself? Like it's this very rich, emergent field when people really start revealing and being honest about what they're wanting and not wanting.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I imagine if I were, walking around with headphones on listening to this podcast, I might be wanting to have a way to get started. How might you advise a person who's recognizing that they are in that desert that we are all in to how do they find water?
It's a good question. The first answer that's coming up is if I just start revealing a little bit more of what's really going on in maybe shorter ways, it models, it kind of invites that kind of relating by example. So when someone says, "Hey, how are you?" And that's such a throwaway greeting in our culture that I can say, "Wow, well, do you want the like quick answer or do you want the like real answer?" And they say most people will go, "Oh no, the real answer." And so then I could say, "Well, here, how it's going right now for me is, one thing that's happening for me is," and I can just be, real for a moment, and then I can say, "But how about you?" Right? And then they might offer the same thing. And just now in that minute, we have like a little richer, a little more 3D conversation.
And the words that you're using aren't even that different from, I think, the script that we use so often in these like superficial exchanges and greetings.
Right.
But the way you said it, there was authentic curiosity.
Yeah.
Like, how about you? Like, I could tell you really wanted to know the answer and you were curious and you didn't know the answer.
That's a really good point, right? Because the words, if you just looked at a script of this on a page, you go like, I don't get it. I don't see what's different. But I think something I maybe take for granted is being present here and being in touch with my own natural desire slash curiosity is important. And then
Mhm.
really actually caring about if I ask how you are, am I asking from a place of really caring about how you are? Or am I
Yeah.
just like doing this perfunctory thing? So that's like one thing. The second thing I'd say is that you can invite a group. Like this is great for like dinners or you're like out socially. Like my wife and I went to dinner and we were with a couple and their son, teenage son. He's like 16 years old, and we're out at sushi. And there's 5 of us sitting at a table. It's kind of noisy, and the son's like on his phone. He's bored out of his mind, and we're and sitting here, and Tamara goes, "Hey, why don't we do like a sentence stem thing? Let's each offer a sentence stem, and then each person just fills in the blank on that sentence. You can ask, say any sentence stem you want, and people can pass if they want." And we went, okay. And so the first one said, something I'm really appreciating right now. And everybody went around and said something I really appreciate. Another person said, and the 16-year-old puts down his phone. He's like tuning in. He's like answering the questions. And we did that for 10 minutes, right? We did 5 stems.
Wow.
And it totally changed the dinner. And he's now like fully engaged. And it led to a lot of like, it revealed a lot of things that we didn't know about each other.
Oh, that's awesome. So actionable. So I'm hearing these two things that I can do and any listener can do is one, slow it down and reveal a little bit more of yourself than you maybe have in the past in a shorter way.
Mm-hmm.
And then second, this bring sentence stems into conversations.
I've got a third one.
Oh yeah. People like threes. Let's
Yeah,
do
this is
three.
good. So the third one is, I'll call it check for impact.
Mm.
And so if you think about a conversation, and I've been really tuning into this lately, like I have an experience in my body, feelings, thoughts, sensations, and then it moves me to speak and I say something, whatever context it is, business, personal, I say something. And then you have a reaction to that. Like you have sensations, feelings, and thoughts. And then usually the conversation's already long gone now. Like we
Mm.
go so fast that there's actually no room for each other. So checking for impact is this practice of, after you've said something or shared something or something's happened, to actually pause and say, hey, I'm wondering, like, what do you think about what I just said? Or how is that for you? There's a lot of questions we can ask, but it's like, it just gives a moment for the person to have their experience and to hear it, to a little back and forth. And that creates connection.
Yes. Because I'm acknowledging I impact you, you impact me. We are connected. We are in relationship.
Yeah. And so, can I tell a story here?
Yeah.
All right, that's riffing because this just happened. Like I'm doing an offsite for 23 leaders, top leaders of their company. They've grown really fast and they're in a financial situation. Like a lot of startups are like, oh no, how much runway do we have? And will we last? Do we have to, we either get sales up or we need to do something? And so there's a lot of tension in the room. And
Mm-hmm.
the CEO and the president of this and the founders of this company have a particular style. They're great, super smart, really caring leaders, and they have their style. And when they get stressed, just like all leaders, the bad parts of their style kind of get amplified. And so that had happened, and people were coming in kind of hot. And I said, are you open to feedback in the group? And they're like, absolutely. So we got to the offsite and put them in front of the room and said, okay. And so I gave the group a couple sentence stems to fill in. And one of them was, things would be a lot better here if you would,
Mm.
and things would be a lot better here if you would stop. And so people started saying things, right? And then we stopped. And then I asked them, how's this for you? And they got to
Mm-hmm.
say how this is for them. So there's this whole invisible layer of what's happening in a
Mm.
conversation that
Mm-hmm.
includes your experience and my experience, and that we just run past. And so to
Mm.
slow down and make room for it is a big deal and can change the quality of the conversation quite significantly.
There's that question of can I give you some feedback? It's a very difficult question to answer. I think so. I think I'm available for that. I don't know what the feedback's going to be yet. I don't know how I'm going to respond. I don't know how you're going to deliver it, but like, let's give it a try.
You're
All
really
right.
amazing leaders. So these two, I can't always pull this off. Like you only
Yeah.
pull this off when you have like leaders that are like emotionally intelligent, open, and not going to get really defensive.
Mm-hmm.
That hour turned out to be a very transformative hour for this team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like it opened up trust.
Mm-hmm.
It cleared the air. It engendered incredible respect for these leaders and the leaders for their team, for their honesty. And they now had this shared experience of, we can be honest with each other and we're all going to survive this.
Mm-hmm. Simon, a sentence stem has popped up for me. I'd love to share actually my response to the sentence stem and have you share it as we move towards close today. This has been such a lovely conversation. It's so great to spend time with you. So here's the sentence stem I want to complete. One way knowing you has changed me is.
I'm going to go. One way knowing you has changed me is, I just remember the first time we had a long call and you reflected back something you were noticing and seeing in me and the way I was showing up in the call. And you both reflected me, but you also challenged me. Like it felt like, wow, Caneel really believes in my capacity and capability to rock whatever I can rock. Like you were just like calling me forth on that call in a bigger way than I had been called forth. And we were just getting to know each other. And there was a way I felt like authorized by you. Like I still remember that particular phone call. I know where I was standing in my backyard. That
I
has
remember.
been huge for me to like stretch out beyond what maybe the smaller me feels comfortable with and be bigger.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel in the last 4 or however many years since we've met each other, we've both seen each other grow and change a lot. I definitely have seen that in you, and I feel different. And I'm very aware of the depth with which you have touched my life. And I'm just really feeling so much gratitude right now. So one way knowing you, Simon, has changed me is through you. I have learned to slow down my conversations, and I have found like the immense depth available in 1 second of time when one is really with another person. And like the gift of that, it's huge.
Hmm. Thank you.
One thing that people, when they find this show and they find our community and they reach out to me, they're so often they're wanting this combination of they want to grow and they want partnership. They want connection. They want to be seen as one who grows. They want to be with others who grow. And I'm very grateful, for what we both have in each other and in other places in our lives. And I'm really excited to hear how some of the tools that you shared and the stories you shared, how those have impacted our listeners. So thank you for the role you've played in my life. And thank you so much for sharing today with our listeners. If you're listening, I challenge you, I authorize you, you are allowed to go out and start doing this stuff right away today, in this moment now. You could ask yourself, what is one way that getting to know Simon today has changed you? And we'd love to hear from you. And if you've got an answer for that on the ready, please share it. You can do that in an iTunes review. You can do that by reaching out to Simon at simondarcy.com. He's also on evolution.team and culture-builders.com. And before we go, I also want to remind you again about the free interactive webinar that we are having early March. You've got only a few more days to sign up because registration for the live version of that closes on February 29th, which is just a couple days away. So before you forget, please open up a browser, go to Caneel.com, and there you will find a link to sign up. And when you sign up for the webinar, I'm also going to give you 2 freebies right away. One of them is our resolution recharge worksheet, and the second is our awesome new goal tracker. I really would love to see you at the webinar, but whether you want to come or not, please go get the freebies. They're there for you, and they can really make a massive difference in you attaining all of your goals this year. Thanks so much for being here. You're awesome for showing up and growing and learning, and I'm very excited for you to be expanding your toolkit right along with me here. I'll see you next week.
Aloud.
For more information, check out my website, Caneel.com/podcast, Caneel, Caneel.com/podcast, where you can find tons of resources, new episodes, show notes, transcripts, videos, all that good stuff to deepen your learning experience. Also follow me on social. Send me your feedback there. Ask me your questions. I'm Caneel.is on Instagram and at Caneel on Twitter.
Allowed. You are allowed to be whole.